Hey guys, this is Crap Hunter, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! Woo! There we go. Today we're going to be having a look at yet another Russian tank. Don't worry, I'm running out. This one is the SU-152. This was actually originally going to be displayed to you upon my holiday, way back when. But I reviewed it and didn't like the first edition, so I thought reshoot it and re-go for it. So yeah, this is the SU-152, the Russian Tier 7 TD along the IS line, SU line, still remembering that one, the SU line, which, in a sense, the two lines are very separate from one another. One is sheer raw damage, like after you go from the SU-100, one is sheer raw damage, basically, high alpha damage shot, really powerful. The others are trying to be more accurate, more precision fire, and a fast and a high rate of, more accurate and higher rate of fire, and also high maneuverability. Whereas with these guys, it's just point me in the general direction of that guy, and he'll go boom somehow. So yeah, let's have a little look at the historical details for it. Heavy self-propelled gun on the hull of a KV-1S tank. With a total of 671 vehicles built in February to December 1943. So historically speaking, what this thing was an anti-bunker device. During that stage of World War II, Russia was slowly starting to crawl back. This was the same year of Kursk battle. So these things would charge towards enemy German positions, being supported by probably T-34s and others, and they would blast German fortifications aside. Like, oh look, there's an 88 position. Bang! What 88 position? And it was one of the it became ridiculously famous for that. So yeah, how does it fare in World of Tanks? Well, hopefully this review shall show you and also educate you on how to and how not to use this vehicle. So, for hit points, you have 870. This is really good. Certainly a lot more than your Tier 6 counterpart. But let's have a little comparison to see how you fare in comparison to your Tier 7 counterparts. So, going up to France, for the AC-48, it has 820. So, obviously, better than it by 50 hit points. Okay. Going over to Deutschland, both the Sturre Emil and the Jagdpanther both have 850 hit points. So you're better than them by 20. Now, the British TD line is, if you don't know already, is very famous for having lots of hit points from the 82 to the 88, and no difference with the 87, with it having 1,250 hit points. Which, obviously makes it better than you by a hell of a lot. But, looking on the positive, the 87 is very famous for not only its armor, but its exposed weak points. And as at Tier 7, most tankers know where to aim, this hit point advantage normally goes away within the first two shots. Going to the Americans, the T-25AT has only 840 hit points, so you're better than it by 30 hit points. Whereas the T-25-2, now I cannot remember off the top of my head, so this will be a hazardous guess, but the T-25-2 might be 860 hit points, so very good, but not as good as you, only less by 10. But that said, also, it could also be 870, so this thing is either slightly worse off than you, or as good as you, so a noble effort, most certainly. And for your counterpart, the SU-100M1, it has 830 hit points, so not as good as you by 40, sorry. So, with hit points, the SU-152, barring the 87, pretty much reigns supreme against its Tier 7 counterparts. Now, while I'm not going to state that this gives you free reign to act like a dumbass and go straight in front of an E-75's gun, this basically gives you an extra slight, barrier to survive at least a shot from an E-75, or God forbid, an SU-152 or a ISU-152, because now you will be going into those higher tier matches where Tier 8s and 9s live. So, going on to weight, and you weigh 46.39 tons with all your equipment and modules attached, and you have a maximum tonnage limit of 48.3. This, in combination with your very nice 600 horsepower engine, gives you a maximum speed limit of 43 kilometers per hour. This is really good for at least straight lines. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for your traverse speed. This is probably where I could say the difference between the SU-152 and the SU-100 M1 comes into play, because whilst the SU-100 M1 can turn really quickly, this thing cannot. Very well, or if it can, it does it very poorly. So when it comes to straight lines, this thing is perfect for it. So if you happen to be in a map and you can generally point your tank in a straight direction, brilliant. But more often than not, you'll probably have to be careful where you go in case you get outflanked by mediums, because they will rip you apart. That's one of the stronger weaknesses of this vehicle. Definitely not a good. Definitely don't put yourself in a position where you can be outflanked really easily. Otherwise, you will die. So, armor. There isn't really that much of an improvement with this vehicle. You have the same 75mm worth of armor that you had on the SU-100. The only difference being the side armor. 60 to the side, 60 to the rear. Yeah, you don't really have that much in the sense of armor. But how much armor? Well, let's go on to Tank Inspector to find out. So here we are in Tank Inspector. Here is the SU-152, and here are the armor values. So the 75mm of frontal armor pretty much does what it says on the tin, the frontal part of the tank. Yes, there is, and unfortunately, because there is little to no angling whatsoever, the likelihood is that anyone trying to shoot you will undoubtedly penetrate and do damage. Going down to the 60mm on the 60mm on the side actually also cover a portion of the underglacial front as well. And not only does it cover this side, it also covers, as I said, round the rear, and also the rear of the upper half of the vehicle as well. So unfortunately, this thing is not very well armored at all. 2 points of interest. One, this 50mm worth of armor, which is also a hatch at the rear, if you want to know what that is, here you go, that little bit there, which has no angling whatsoever. So you aim, you point, you shoot, you hit, you penetrate or destroy, depending on what kind of shell you've got. The second point of interest is this 100mm of armor on the gun mantlet. Now, what I'm going to say will probably be very controversial, and also possibly it applies more in some aspects to this vehicle, but also it does apply in the sense of armor, the gun. Now, when you use the SU-152, there are probably two groups of people in this vehicle range. One group of people who utilize this gun, the oh, hello, if it'll work. Yeah, there you go. These group of people, those who use the 122mm, what is it, the D25 mod 1944. I'm not too sure if that's the same one you get on the SU-122-44. So as you can see, you have this, you've got a nice big long barrel and all that, and then you've got the people like myself who utilize this gun, the 152. Now, I have found, through experience, through being taught, and generally through most forms of combat, that the SU-152's gun, the mantlet and everything, actually helps to cover the tank. As you can see, there is a lot of spaced armor between this part of the tank and, the spaced armor between itself and the actual hull of the tank. Now, generally speaking, some people might disagree and say, oh, it doesn't really provide that much protection. But in most forms of combat, more often than not, if we go into the zoom thing, you're more often to see a SU-152 from the front like here. And shells will more often than not bounce or hit your frontal gun mantlet, whereupon it either absorbs it or it bounces off. If we just go into here, because you get 65mm, there you go, plus the 70 millimeters worth of spaced armor, backed up by 60mm of
of hull armor, which is there, and then 100 millimeters of hull armor there. So you'll find yourself getting to it with most angles, if you go from the front, more often than not, the shell hitting the side of this gun mantlet, or the center generally, and pinging off, ricocheting, or taking the hit, but then being absorbed, so you don't get damaged. Or, the worst case scenario for this thing, the gun the gun is knocked out. So, generally speaking, this thing is very good at absorbing the hits for you, which, to a degree, does help when it comes to Tier 8 and 9 games, whereupon, say, for example, an IS-3 comes along, shoots you, and the shell just either bounces off or it's absorbed by the massive gun mantlet. And the target, if we look from a distance, for the hull, yes, is quite big, but a good SU-152 driver will be able to utilize his gun mantlet to be able to increase the chances of a bounce. So, we'll go more into the I'm going to say controversial because I know there's going to be some people out there who will happily or will full-heartedly disagree. But in my experience, I have found that this gun mantlet has greatly assisted the SU-152 survive a number of high caliber shell type shots, and it still does it to this day. So yeah, the armor of the SU-152. Now, for those who want to shoot this thing, obviously under Glacius, much easier target to go for. Can also bugger up the insides of your vehicle, this vehicle, like the transmission or even the fuel. Obviously, the side armor, that's pretty much a guaranteed. You possibly will ammo rack the SU-152, pretty much firing along this southern point here, side point here. Either you'll injure the gunner, perhaps injure the commander, radio ops. Around here, like the KV-1S, IS, and 3, and probably others, shoot along this region, you'll undeniably cause it engine fires. For the rear, if you can, I'm not saying that's really a good place for the ammo rack, but if you can, try and go for this kind of area because it's the path of least resistance and there is no angling whatsoever, so there won't be any troll moments where your shot goes in and for some reason it doesn't penetrate if you're not the highest of tiers. So yeah, the SU-152's armor. Now, let's go back to the garage to continue with the review. So, now, view range and signal range. For view range, well, you're a Russian tank. By now, you should be used to the concept that you will not be able to see very far without assistance. It continues with the SU-152. 330 view range. Oh, not so good. Let's have a little look, though, in comparison to your Tier 7 counterparts that are not close-topped. So, the AMX AC-46. 350 view range, so better than you by 20. The Yarg Panther, 370, so much better than you. The AT-7, 350, so better than you by 20. The T-25-2, 380. The T-25AT, 350. What about your counterpart? Please, let there be some light at the end of the tunnel. 360. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. You're quite shit when it comes to view range. Yeah, you're the weakest when it comes to view range, which is very, very bad. Yeah. Very bad indeed. But for signal range, there is a surprising contrast. 625, which is not normally seen in Russian tanks, I will tell you. Especially leading up to Tier 7. Let's have a little look at the French. So the French AC-46, they get the Tier 10 radio, which is 750. Oh dear. The Studer Emil gets a 700 signal range, which is obviously much better than you. Jagdpanther gets the Fug 12, 710, once again, much better than you. The British, with their 87, gets 700 signal range with their tanks, so better than you. What about the Americans with their fantastic view range? Oh shit, what does this one have? 615. So an American Tier 9 radio is worse than you by 10. 5 did I say? Tier 9. And the same goes for the T25AT. What about your counterpart? Well, your counterpart has a Tier 8 radio, but it only does 525. So 100 worse than you. So, while you're not at the bottom of the pile, you're certainly not far from it. With view range, you are completely screwed if you go out to somewhere on your own, unless you have a pair of binos on you. Yeah, it's very bad, unfortunately, for you. So when it comes to fighting with this thing, closer up the better. Obviously without going ridiculously close. But still, an improvement, especially since your counterpart has very, very bad signal range. So, the SU-152 at least has that to smile about. Now, onto probably the most controversial part, but my favourite part of this review, the gun. Now, as I said before, there are two kinds of people who utilise this vehicle. Those who use the 122mm D25D mod, and those like myself who use this gun. We have a little comparison between the two. Now, what I'm going to say here is pretty much, well, if you use this gun with its 8.11 rounds a minute, 175 pen, 390 damage, 0.41 accuracy, 2.9 second aiming time, over the 152, 3.39, 135 average, 700 damage, 0.5 accuracy, and 3.4 second aiming time. If you use it over, if you use this over this, then you're doing it wrong. Because now, before you rage and spam in the comment, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a noob. I grinded this vehicle using this gun and only this gun, and I knew that if I tried using the other gun, I would struggle. For two reasons. One, I have technically used this gun, but on another tank, the SU-152-44. And don't get me wrong, this gun is not a bad choice. But considering the matchmaking that you're going to be going into, this gun is by far the better choice. Or at least in my opinion, it is by far the better choice. And I'll show you why. With this gun, you need to have something which has less than 175mm worth of armor for you to penetrate and do 390 or perhaps 300 and something damage to. And you do get an amazing rate of fire, goodish accuracy, and a very poorish but okay, 2.9 second aiming time to do damage in a game. And you'll probably do relatively well in some tier 7 games, perhaps not so well in tier 8 and 9 games. But with this gun, yes, the reload is absolutely long, terrible, and this gun has a tendency to troll if you're not fully aimed. But you have the potential, using this shell type, to do an average of over 300 damage for just hitting a tier 8 tank. And better still, if you can find a part of a tier 8 or 9 tank which has less than 86mm worth of hull armor that's flat, or not even though that's not even flat, it will penetrate and do nearly over 900 damage. So for example, say a Lorraine 40 ton, you could perhaps, if someone shoots it first, or perhaps you don't even have to worry about shooting it first, you can do over 1000 damage to a tier 9 tank. I did over 900 damage to the rear of a Conqueror. This gun is so much fun to use, and it makes your grind that much more entertaining than, say, trying to use this gun in a tier 8 and 9 game. Simply because this gun doesn't require penetration to work effectively. Another benefit of utilizing this gun is that it has high explosive ammunition, and which basically means you can bugger up your opponent's vehicle in multiple ways. You can track it, you can injure the crew, you can perhaps have a higher chance of setting it on fire, you have a chance of ammo racking it, loads of things. If you're facing off against tier 7 tank destroyers, for example, the Sturre Emil, one of my favourite targets, because you only need to hit above the track line. Basically, hit it on its frontal hull. What am I doing? I've got it in my garage. Let's go to Germany. You only need to hit this vehicle there, or above here, above the tracks, and you can one-shot it. I have one-shotted these things a lot of times. If you get the side of this, you can one-shot it. If you get this, you can one-shot it to a degree. Like, once you, if you get the side and it's already been slightly damaged, you can one-shot it or do a fuck ton of damage to it. You know, in fact, I think you can possibly one-shot it if you have a high damage roll. You know, the IS tank, or the KV-1S tank, you can one-shot it. There are loads of tanks out there which you can have so much fun in one-shotting. And yeah, I know what you're going to say, but Crap Hunter, you hate dirt gun tanks. Yes, but some of them I absolutely abhor. But this one, like the KV-2, makes sense. This tank, yes, it's a TD, but it's a fun TD. This is the tank that you want to go in when you're pissed off. You've had a bad day at work or a bad day at school, depending on how old you are when you play this, or college, depending. You're really pissed off with someone, and you're playing this game. You shoot and do over 850 damage to someone, instantly killing them. How much? That's a good feeling. Obviously, you are pretty much ruining someone else's game, but fuck them. You've had a bad day. You need cheering up. So, you know, what better way to cheer yourself up than to see over 850 damage in one shot? So, guys, this is where I go to tell you about your equipment and crew skills. This is basically where I tell you which bits to stick on your tank and what skills to train on your crew. For equipment, for the first two slots, you'll want to have improved ventilation class 3 and a large caliber gun rammer. You just need them, no excuses. The third option is, as always, up to you. However, here's what I would recommend. Now, there are two technically speaking, with this vehicle, there's a lot of vehicles with two number one recommendations, but more often than not, it's down to your play style. For those out there who are like me to a degree, who don't often go in platoons or don't often rely on teammates to do their jobs for them, I would recommend you get a binocular telescope. There are two benefits to this as well. First of all, when upon aiming to take your shot, the binocular telescope will activate after a couple of seconds, thus allowing you to either see a better target, or better still, be able to make sure that you aren't being outflanked by someone, or to be able to have a better grasp of what's going on in the combat field. So that's pretty awesome. Another benefit of this equipment module is that you can demount it for free, as it's not a complex equipment. How do you know? Well, first of all, you get that little symbol at the bottom of some equipment, and also you see the little screw over there. That basically means you'll have to pay either gold to remove it, or you have to destroy it, and getting rid of 500,000 credits, not a good idea. So that would be a good number one recommendation for you guys. However, if you prefer to just get the accuracy of your gun sorted, if you prefer that more than being able to see further, then the enhanced gun laying drive is for you. It basically reduces your aiming speed by about 10%, and it hopefully makes your experience less troll-like. But that said, just as long as you're patient with this gun, you can make most of your shots. Just be sure not to go batshit crazy when someone comes up close. So, equipment and crew skills. This is basically where I tell you guys what equipment and crew skills that you would need for your vehicle. First off, equipment. For the first two slots of your vehicle, you will want an improved ventilation class 3, a large caliber gun rammer, and the third option is, as always, up to you, but here are my recommendations. Now, the SU-152, you can have, I have two number one recommendations. One is when you're working more in platoons, the other is kind of when you're doing more of a solo job. Now, for when you're working in platoons, an enhanced gun laying drive. It makes your reload, it makes your aiming time go down, thus allowing you to be able to get your cannon on target a lot faster. This, in combination with perhaps a Brothers in Arms crew, really could help. And certainly would be a good idea if you really don't like that 3.4 second aiming time. However, if you're like myself, you're not so fussed about it, but you want to be able to see further because of that very terrible 330 view range, then I would highly recommend you get a binocular telescope. This thing has two advantages to it. First of all, when you're taking that 3.4 second aiming time to aim, the binocular telescope activates, adding 25% to your view range. This either can help you spot a much juicier target, say for example a Stura Emil's side, or it alerts you to enemy forces attempting to flank and try and get you. Another bonus to this equipment is that once upon purchasing it, it's not a complex equipment, which means you can happily demount it like so, and not have to pay a single penny or suffer the consequences of destroying it. And then you can attach it to any other vehicle with a free equipment equipment slot, so you can attach it again. Bob's thy uncle, sorted. For other equipment, I suppose my number 2 recommendation would possibly be a camo net. Once again, not a complicated equipment, so you can demount it whenever you please, and it is also one of the cheapest to go for. So maybe if you have a spare 100,000, you can give the camo a try. But like the binocular telescope, it takes a few seconds to activate, and considering how the changing moments of a battlefield can occur, that might not be such a good idea, to which perhaps the enhanced gun laying drive might be a better option. But everything else I wouldn't really say is necessary, because it doesn't, I mean, the spore liner is the only other thing I could say is a good idea. But that would be a number 2 recommendation, because not only you're sacrificing both your ability to see further or the ability to shoot faster, so you have to really think whether you really need the heavy spore liner or not. Now, on to crew skills. Now, I realise I've probably chosen the wrong first skill for a TD crew in repairs. I unfortunately suffer from the very bad habit of being very aggressive, but don't worry, I will activate brain cells at some point, and I will, in my next crew, try and use stealth skills a lot more. I do a lot with my other tank destroyers like the Stura Emil and the Borsig, but for this one I prefer repairs. I don't know why. I didn't learn back then. Anyway, going on to the commander, undeniably you need to give him a sixth sense, as to be able to know when you've been spotted before you're being shot at is certainly an advantage. Unfortunately, also, your commander has the role of radio operator as well. Not such a good thing, because your radio operator does have a very useful skill, which is situational awareness. But you must get Sixth Sense first. So get yourself some Sixth Sense first by using the technique upon getting 100% with another skill, training another skill training another skill up to 40%, so that way you can counter the penalty effects of dropping said skill without having to pay a fortune in either gold or I would say the 20,000 would be better than having to pay a gold to get your skill back up to 100%. After which you probably will want to go for something like situational awareness. This is a skill, so you won't have to worry about perking or trying to do the same things to get to the Sixth Sense. Apart from that, up to you really. I mean, recon wouldn't be a bad idea. You know, Brothers in Arms eventually, but I've not really found, I haven't really come to rely on that skill yet. So definitely not. You know, definitely after Sixth Sense, up to you. Gunner. Now, because this thing doesn't have a turret, you won't really need to worry about snapshot, but what you will need to do, same process again, get yourself Deadeye. This basically increases the chance for you to cause damage to your opponent, either by the modules or the crew, and as you have high explosive shells, oh, it's only effective with high explosive, okay, never mind about Deadeye then, just get designated target. This basically allows your enemy vehicle to be spotted for an extra 2 more seconds, which gives you or your team the time to kill him. That's the first time I've ever had to say no to that one. I mean, obviously you have, if you want to use high explosive anti-tank or AP, but more often than not you probably won't need it. So this one, just get yourself designated target. Going to your driver. Now, one recommended skill I would highly recommend is
the clutch braking. Because of this vehicle's very poor traverse speed, you will want to make this thing turn as fast as possible, and this skill is a number 1 yes. After which you will probably want to get off-road driving. Once again, this comes into effect and increases your vehicle's maneuverability. So perhaps what this will mean is that you can get off the base quicker, you can react to situations quicker, and generally survive longer in certain changing situations. After which you probably want to get yourself something like camouflage or repairs, do the skill drop again, and get preventative maintenance to get that last useful skill. Now, the thing with the SU-152 is that this vehicle has 2 loaders, so which you can actually take advantage of this by training one loader to train up in safe stowage, which basically increases the ammo rack durability, and train the other loader to get adrenaline rush. This basically allows your vehicle to accelerate its gun loading, or the reloading of the gun, if it has less than 10% of its hit points left. So if you've been hit by a rather nasty shot from the ISU-152, you'll be able to fire this thing faster, and that may save you from a match. So very much a good idea to utilize both of these loaders, but have different skills so you can train them up faster. Well, that's it for the talking side of this review. Let's get on to 1 or 2 replays, probably 1 replay and 1 live play, to show this vehicle's capabilities in combat. And we're back, and we are in the SU-152 Tier 7 match on Swamp. I was joined in this replay by Rexasaur during his grind on the Student Mill, and this was when I was about midway through grinding my vehicle, so I'd gotten all the equipment modules except the guns. So, yeah, this is relatively, like, top-ish tier. I mean, you do get the very rare occasional battles where you are one of the few top-tiering vehicles in the game, or in that said game. But, with this one, this is the kind of best matchmaking you can get. But with this gun, it is absolutely fantastic, and there are a number of perks why. One, you'll see in a second, but the other one is, if you know the armor values of every vehicle you fight against in this, you know you can do lots of damage. And there was the number 1 reason why. I love it when I do that. So yeah, the Panzer 30 NA tried to suicide scout and succeeded in suiciding, but not scouting. So in this now, we've eliminated 2 tanks to their 0. And then the enemy team decided to bum rush the top upper half of the map, which was at first seemed to be a bit of a problem, but to me it was just a golden opportunity. And unfortunately my positioning meant that I couldn't get a full effective shot on them. So I moved in position, trying to get a shot in, trying to see if I could shoot through something. I keep my eyes to my right, I spot the T1 Heavy, I aim and clutch, and he just moves out the way. Bugger. So, enemy T1 Heavy, Rexasaur gets a nice damage roll into him. T1 Heavy has less health, and I wasn't too particularly happy about doing this, but a kill's a kill. Now in that case, normally I wouldn't really shoot him, but considering that there was only 2 tier heavy tanks on our right-hand flank, whereas everyone else was down south, I figured it was a good idea to kill them off. So I decided to try and get a flanking shot around the guys who are trying to push up along this flank here. And I am rewarded with a number of shots against them as an enemy KV-1S appears, and 3, 2, 1, taking my time, aim, 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 boom! Yes, his full HP of 810 hit points just went boop, and I've now got over 1,000 damage. In less than 3 minutes, over 1,000 damage, and the enemy team, while admittedly they were having their asses handed to, still had a fair amount to go. This is why this gun is so much fun, especially at this tier. So anyway, an enemy Student Mill catches on to my presence. I very luckily get away without taking any damage, so I take a few seconds for myself to reload, by which time the Student Mill has forgotten me. But then I aim, I take a shot, I shoot. Now, for those of you who are wondering,
why I didn't one-shot him. It was because I went low and I hit his proper 75... Yeah, 75... No, not 75, but I hit his frontal armor, the little bit stronger section of the vehicle. If I had hit anywhere higher, he would have been one-shotted. So I unfortunately take a shot, and I take some damage there. He falls into the river, giving me a few extra precious seconds time to reload. Now I'm now under fire from the Black Prince, and I aim, and I shoot, and I kill him. Now I took one shot. One of them hit and penetrated and did damage, but the other shot hit the gun mantler and absorbed the shell. It penetrated, but it didn't do any damage, and my gun didn't take any damage as well. So the hit points it has is ridiculous. So at this point, the game is pretty much over. Our team on the bottom half have completely decimated their lines and have done ridiculous amounts of damage. And all that remains now is a KV-3 and a Tiger P over there to the north. I get a very lucky shot into the side of the KV-3's turret armor. Only doing 300, but that said, 300 damage, tier 7 tank, that's certainly going to do a fairly decent job. So at this point, the game is kind of now becoming a bit of a rush. I spot 2 enemy targets to the left, but we really need to knock these guys out over to the north. Rexasaur moves into position. He has taken some damage. I was very cocky with that shot. I really should have spent a little bit more time with that. I thought I could nab him as a bit of a clutch. But unfortunately, Rexasaur dies before I could reload just enough time to be able to save this Tiger P. I fire, I kill him. So now that there's only 2 enemy tanks left, and all of our team, save these 2 bastards, are in the cap. Now, if you're wondering who they are, it's a KV-3 and a Crusader. Now, the reason why I talk about this is because throughout the course of the game, you'll no doubt notice I have 5 kills. And this game was looking pretty nice. We had the enemy 2 remaining tanks surrounded, and I was now getting a bit worried because I'm thinking, oh no, they're going to cap. And it was very frustrating because I had only 5 kills. I wanted to get a top gun, and I was thinking, ooh, I can get my first top gun in my SU-152, and the scrubs captured the base anyway, and I got very angry, and I called them arseholes. They deserved it because they were being pricks. And I'm going to add a little point onto here. If you know where your opponents are when you're capping, it doesn't matter whether you haven't done too well. There is always an opportunity for you to do something, you know? And if you're that much of a shit player that you think, oh, fuck you guys, I'm just gonna go cap, you're an asshole. Because you're now denying the ability for someone else to potentially get more damage, more experience, and perhaps get a top gun like I did. Now, I'm not on an award whore, but still, you could let us have the top gun, you know? Anyway, I'll see you guys back in the garage. So, unfortunately, in that case, despite our very good game, if we go to the team score, unfortunately, it's showing the wrong side. Damage? Yeah, it's showing the wrong side. Well, if you look down at the screen for once, as you can see, I did 2,700, and we're going to move around as well, 2,735 damage. I also received 1,103 base experience and got, you know, fairly decent in the game. As you can tell, the 2 people being utter wankers in the game, the KV-3 and the Crusader, were the ones who capped and did buggereth all in the game. So yeah, not to raise too much of a point against them, they're just wanting to reiterate the fact that when you see 2 opponents who clearly are going to die in less than 5 seconds, you could do the kind, decent thing of not capping. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next game. And we're back, and we are in a tier 8 game in Miravanka. In this replay, I was joined with Rexasaur, and this was kind of the most common kind of match I had during my grind up the SU-152. But to be honest with you, the best thing about this vehicle, at least with this gun, is that even if you're in a tier 8 game, you know you can still do a fairly decent amount of damage. So both Rexasaur and I decided to take the left line, pushing up, trying to see if we can push up towards getting to this position here, Him, of course, in his T-34-1 get away much faster than I can. But you can see that the straight line capabilities of this vehicle aren't too bad. I push along this left-hand side of the hill to avoid getting shot by my, getting shot by the teammates over there. Enemies over there. So Rexosaur is very fortunate to get into position and start spotting for opponents before anyone. And it would appear to be that for once nobody's up there, which is quite nice. And as I slowly lumber to get into position, I myself get through when we spot our first contact. Enemy Hellcat sighted. Quickly joined by an IS-3. So we get into position, getting prepared to deal with it. And oh, there's another IS-3. Hellcat returns to get completely blitzed by a shot from the T-34. Sorry, Ferdinand. Rexosaur takes a small damaging hit, but not too much. I decide to pull back a little bit because obviously, if we're being spotted on the right, then those people on that side could get shot into us. So as our T-34 decides to move up with our Hellcat, I push up towards this point to try and see if I can get any shots into any IS-3. Just as I move into position, IS-3 comes in, I spot, I fire, and I get a very nice under the shot of the tracks. Right, did you see that? For those of you who didn't, basically what just happened is I took a full shot, a penetrating full shot from an IS-3 which bounced, or at least it was absorbed, by the gun mantlet. It completely either bounced off or absorbed the gun mantlet. That's how awesome this gun mantle is. This is another reason why I recommend you have this gun, because it just bounced a 122mm 225 pen on this gun. That's awesome. That will save your life, and it saved mine. So I get a very lucky bounce, and the enemy KV-4 with the last remaining IS-3 appears. So we've got pretty much a difficult situation already ahead of us. 4 of our top opponents, top-tiering tanks, and they're all going around the corner. So I'm very cautious at this point. I'm not too sure as to how much I can actually do in this game, because if I go over the top, all it would take is at least 2 of them to have high damage rolls, and I'm dead. Rexosaur gets a nice shot into the KV-4, but unfortunately takes a nasty hit from that as well. I try and poke across the top because the enemy T-43 is sighted, and then he disappears. I then decide to move to the left. Once again, trying to see if I can get a shot in over the top. Nothing really too much. The enemy IS-3 reverses, and I get a nice 290 shot into the guy's cupola. Very good shot there. Very happy with that. Enemy forces completely destroy our T-34. IS tank is sighted on the right. It's again me trying to push up, trying to get something in there. I see him for a moment, but then unfortunately he disappears. Unfortunately, nothing comes out of it. So our Ferdinand has pushed up and is now trying to get shots in to try and knock out enemy KV-4. Now, as we're focusing a lot on this enemy KV-4, Ferdy takes a hit, and then an enemy IS-3 appears, trying to get a shot in. I get a very lucky clutch shot, which tracks the IS-3. Then he fixes it. Or does he fix it? Or does he... Well, no, he doesn't fix it. He gets a shot in. I then start to move into position. I aim, I aim, I aim, I shoot, bang. He was a very lucky IS-3. Well, he was a very lucky IS-3. But still, that would have normally killed him. So now we've kind of evened up the odds and taken out 2 of the enemy, taken out 1 of the IS-3s at the enemy point. So now it's looking a little bit more in our favour, which allows me to push up and see if I can get a shot in. Can I get a shot in? Can I do? Oh, can I get? Oh, can I get it? Oh, he's reversing. Can I get a shot in? And well, I kind of expected that as he is a high-health vehicle. But Rexosaur gets the killing blow, taking out the KV-4. Now, at this point, I am super confident, and I really push my luck by pushing up and trying to see if I can get a shot in. I then go YOLO, and I aim for one, I hit the other. So I decide maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all, and then I mock them by wagging my gun, going nah 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 nah. By this point, I am then under heavy fire. Then I realise, oh shit, they're both on me. And as I'm also being sighted by artillery, I think maybe I should pull back, as we've now lost all of our Tier 8 heavies. If you haven't been paying attention on the right-hand flank, we're also losing on that one as well. So at this point, I've just lost all confidence, and I'm thinking, bugger, I need to pull back. So at this point, both Rexasaur and the Hellcat, push up, trying to sort of cause distractions. Rexasaur, being very brave there, decides to push up and attract the attention and spot my targets. I take my time because I'm thinking, right, I only have one shot to do this. I need to knock out one of the IS-3s. So it makes it very difficult. I'm thinking, Christ, what do I do? I can't go over the top, he'll spot me. And then I move up. I think, oh no, he won't do anything, he won't do anything. And then this guy just, where is it? Yeah, this guy decides just to reverse out and get a shot at. Boom! That, if you did also notice, at the top, going back to an IS-3 review, I had the ability, and I knew that my shell went over the top and penetrated the top half of that tank shell. So be very careful, because engagements like this, you are very easily could get killed. Artillery tries to have a go at me. IS-3 gets killed. Rexasaur moves into position. I think, right, I can happily charge into the fray and take my shot. So I go, hoorah! And bang! So there's 2 enemy IS-3s. Well, that's an entire enemy IS-3 platoon hit, and I fail by ramming into the building. So not only did we hold our corner against 4 of our opposing team's top heavy tanks, we also held off and completely trolled them. By the way, kudos to this man here, because he had an amazing game, because he was one of the only heavy drivers down south who was able to hold against the remaining enemy tanks along with other tanks. But he did a very good job in holding out against the enemy tanks, so well done to the KV-1S driver. Enemy Gewehr Panzer moves. I unfortunately don't get the kill, but Rexasaur does. So yeah, that game was absolutely fantastic, and this is the kind of things you can do, because I didn't exactly do too much, in all fairness, but because of what I could do with this gun, I certainly made myself an opponent to be reckoned with, and it was because of that I really feel, especially if you work in a platoon, you can totally dominate someone's, you can totally dominate what the opponent thinks, because you think, right, if he knows you've got the gun and he knows you're loaded, you can totally psych the guy out a bit to make him focus more on you, whilst your friends or your allies move around and outflank them like Rexasaur did and like my other teammates did. So anyway, guys, let's get back to the garage for the summary. So before we go back to the garage, let's just have a quick look at the victory on that one. So as you can see, we won that game. And I did a number of damaging things. That's the other thing you're going to notice with this vehicle. Like in the last one, you will do so much critical damages to your opponents, which will screw them over quite generally. Unfortunately, I have to keep moving this thing, because unfortunately my editor decides to cut out all video with this. So as you can see, if we go to damage, opposite wise, can I? Oh, okay, well, we'd have to go to Y1, which is here. I did 2,268 damage, and I got a massive experience. I don't know why they're doing it the wrong way, but whatever. We were able to get it and do a lot of damage and get a lot of experience. So we did very well in that one to get that. As did that KV-1S driver who survived as well. Kudos to that man as well. So, this thing is absolutely fantastic, and if used correctly, will most certainly devastate even the top tier 8 opponent. So, there you go, the SU-152, the Russian Tier 7 nightmare. Summary time. Now, of course, what I've talked about in this review about how one gun is better than pretty much the other gun selections combined probably will cause some problems, but at the same time, you can see that the amount of damage that you can do, / the amount of fun you can have, will most certainly do more to help out, hopefully will convince you that while the other gun is good and certainly will help you in Tier 7 matches and perhaps a few Tier 8 matches, is really difficult and probably will make you hate this thing to a degree in higher tier matches, whereupon the reliance of perhaps having this gun would seem to be much better than the other gun, and
And I appreciate it's probably if you've played World of Tanks for a long time and you've only used this tank with that gun, then it'll probably be difficult for you to adjust. But just go for it if you still got your SU-152. And anyone who wants to go for this tank, you know, I would urge that you try out this gun, because it's the stock gun. You don't have to worry about research. If you're going to grind for this thing, use the stock gun, because it makes your grind so much easier, so much more fun, and it will make you more of a pain in the ass to your enemy team than ever before, because there's always going to be one French tank in one game which will be very juicy, and you'll hit and you'll pretty much either completely destroy, or better still, kill, set a fire, and see all those damage points go up. It's that much of a good tank for that sort of thing. So yeah, the SU-152, a fantastic tank. You can have fun in any time you play it. You know, even if you have a bad game, you can still say, well, okay, I may have died and my team absolutely sucks, but at least I set a freaking E100 on fire and he didn't have a fire extinguisher or something, or I completely devastated that E75. You know, those kind of fun moments. So yeah, that's about it for this review, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, feel free to let me know by typing in the comment section down below, clicking on that like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. If you yourself are a YouTuber or World of Tanks player and you've seen a couple of things that could do with a bit more feedback, or if I haven't talked about something too much here, I don't mention too much stuff out there, anything really to help improve, feel free to put in the comment section down below. All they ask is that there is no trolling, because all that means is that the hard time you spent trying to find the right words to find the best thing to insult me with will be gone, because I'll delete the comment. So pointless on that one. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Crap Hunter signing out, and I'll catch you next time.